Then I blinked. My reflection didn't. I've spent a lot of time in rooms that aren't mine. Motel rooms, short-term rentals, spare bedrooms in houses that feel like they're holding their breath. When you travel as much as I do, you start to notice that every space has its own internal clock. Some rooms feel like they're rushing toward the morning, while others feel like they've given up on time altogether. The apartment I was staying in back in October was one of the latter. It was located in a gray, nondescript building on the edge of a city that didn't care if I stayed or left. I wasn't there to hunt for the paranormal. I wasn't trying to summon anything. I've learned the hard way that you don't have to look for the strange. If you stay quiet enough, it eventually finds you. It was 12:03 a.m. I know this because the microwave in the kitchenette was the only thing in the entire place that still kept honest time. The blue numbers glowed in the dark like a tiny digital beacon. Everything else, the air, the dust motes, the hum of the city outside, felt suspended. It was that heavy, thick silence that only exists after midnight when the world stops checking its watch. I'd stayed up too late, a habit of mine. I was scrolling through my phone, letting the blue light numb my brain, watching the minutes slip away. My eyes felt like they'd been rubbed with sand, dry, stinging, exhausted. That's why I went to the bathroom, just a simple human need, nothing ritualistic, no candles, no chanting, no intention of breaking any ancient taboos, just a tired man looking for a splash of cold water. The bathroom was one of those narrow, claustrophobic spaces where you could touch the sink and the door frame at the same time without stretching. When I flipped the switch, the fluorescent light didn't just turn on, it struggled. It buzzed and flickered for a second, casting a pale, sickly yellow glow over everything. It's the kind of light that makes you look like a ghost before you're even dead. I leaned over the porcelain sink, turned the faucet, and let the cold water run over my wrists before cupping it in my hands and splashing it onto my face. I let the water drip from my chin, eyes closed, savoring the shock of the cold. When I finally looked up, my reflection was already staring back at me. You ever notice how you look older at night? Shadows seem to pool in the hollows of your cheeks. The lines around your eyes look like maps of roads you should have never taken. When you're alone too much, you start to rely on the mirror to confirm that you're still there, that you still have a shape. I remembered my grandmother's voice then. She used to have this one rule, delivered without a hint of a smile.
Don't linger at the glass after the sun goes down, especially after the clock strikes 12.
She never gave a reason. She didn't have to. Some rules just carry their own weight of unease. But I lingered. I was too tired to be smart. At first, everything was as it should be. I tilted my head to the left, and the man in the glass did the same. I raised my eyebrows, checking the exhaustion in my eyes, and he mimicked me perfectly. There's a certain comfort in that predictability. It's the universe's way of saying, don't worry, the laws of physics are still in place. Then I blinked. My reflection didn't. It's a strange thing, how the human brain processes an impossibility. There was no surge of adrenaline, no scream, just a cold, clinical confusion. It was like seeing a typo in a book you've read 1,000 times. I stood there, eyes wide open, waiting for the image to correct itself, waiting for the lag to catch up. It didn't. The man in the mirror kept his eyes fixed on mine. He wasn't blinking, he wasn't moving, he was staring with an intensity that felt personal. He wasn't a monster, he was me, but a version of me that had stopped pretending. He looked familiar, yet entirely foreign. My throat felt like it was closing. I tried to chuckle, a nervous sound to break the spell, but it died in my chest. I blinked again, harder this time, squeezing my eyes shut for a full 3 seconds, counting them out in my head. 1, 2, 3. When I opened them, the man in the glass was smiling. I wasn't. It wasn't the kind of smile you see in a photograph. It was subtle. The corners of his mouth lifted just enough to create a crease in his cheeks. It was the look of someone who had just heard a private joke, the kind of joke that would never be funny to anyone else. I took a step back. The floorboards didn't even creak. The reflection stayed right where it was. His hands remained resting on the edge of the porcelain sink. His posture was relaxed, leaning in slightly, as if he were trying to tell me a secret. And that's when I noticed the perspective was wrong. Even though I had moved back, he looked closer. His face seemed larger in the frame of the mirror, more present, more solid than I felt. "Okay," I whispered. My voice sounded thin, like paper tearing. "That's enough. That's enough for tonight." I reached for the light switch. I just wanted the dark. I wanted the mirror to disappear. But before my finger could flip the plastic toggle, a voice arrived. It didn't come through my ears. It didn't vibrate the air in the room. It arrived fully formed inside my skull, gentle, calm, and terrifyingly unforced. "You always stop right here," it said. My hand froze mid-air. The voice was mine. It had the same cadence, the same slight hitch I'd developed after years of traveling alone, talking to myself to keep the silence at bay. It sounded like a recording of my own thoughts played back to me. "I'm just tired," I said out loud. I needed to hear the sound of the physical world.
"This is just exhaustion. My brain is misfiring."
The reflection's smile widened just a fraction. "That's what you said last time." I don't remember the light going out. I don't remember if I flipped the switch or if the bulb finally gave up. One moment the room was yellow, the next it was a void. But the mirror didn't go dark. It became like a window looking into a lit room. I could see him. He was still lit by that sickly yellow glow, still leaning on the sink, still watching me with those unblinking eyes. I backed out into the hallway. I didn't turn my back. I couldn't. Every instinct, the first possessed, every primitive survival mechanism buried in my DNA, told me that if I turned around, the distance between us would vanish. I retreated into the dark hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I could feel the pulse in my teeth. The reflection followed. He didn't step out of the frame, but as I moved down the hall, the image in the mirror adjusted. He stayed centered in the glass, maintaining that impossible closeness, his eyes never leaving mine. The surface of the mirror seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond after a stone is thrown in. I reached the bathroom door and slammed it shut. The sound was deafening. It echoed through the empty apartment, a sharp, violent crack that seemed to vibrate the very walls. I stood there in the dark, my back against the wood, listening. I counted my breaths. I waited for a knock. I waited for a handle to turn. Nothing. After 20 minutes, the silence returned to its natural state. I convinced myself it was a hallucination, sleep deprivation, dehydration, the flickering of a bad bulb. They all create optical illusions. I was a man of logic, a collector of stories, not a victim of them. There had to be an explanation. I went to bed without opening that door again. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't look at my phone. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sun. But sleep didn't come. Around 3 a.m., I heard it. The soft, distinct click of the bathroom door opening. It was slow, deliberate, the sound of someone who knew exactly where the squeaky hinges were and was taking great care to avoid them. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I remembered the rules, the ones people don't tell you until it's too late. Don't look, don't acknowledge, don't give it your attention. If you don't confirm its existence, it can't fully enter yours. I felt it when he stopped beside my bed. There was no weight on the mattress, no cold breeze, just a shift in the air, a presence leaning over me, close enough that I should have felt his breath on my skin. But there was no breath, just a cold, stagnant pressure. You should really stop doing that, the voice said inside my head. It didn't sound angry. It sounded concerned, like a friend giving advice after seeing you make the same mistake a dozen times, staring for so long. It makes it hard for me to stay back there. I kept my eyes clamped shut until the gray light of dawn began to bleed through the blinds. When I finally found the courage to move, the apartment was empty. The air was normal. The microwave clock said 6:45 a.m. I went to the bathroom. I forced myself to do it. The mirror was just a mirror. The light was just a light. There were no ripples, no voices, no smiles. But as I reached out to splash my face again, I saw them. Faint, oily fingerprints on the surface of the glass. They weren't on my side. I tried to wipe them away with my thumb, but my skin just slid over the smooth surface. The prints were on the inside, looking out. I cleaned the mirror that morning. I scrubbed it with ammonia until my eyes watered and the glass squeaked. I told myself it was condensation from the shower. I told myself 100 lies just so I could finish packing my bags and leave. I'm careful now. I don't look into mirrors after dark. I shave by touch. I brush my teeth in the dark. I keep my eyes on the floor when I pass a darkened TV screen or a shop window. Because I know he's still there. My reflection isn't a shadow or a trick of the light. He's a tenant, waiting for the next time I'm tired enough or curious enough to linger a second too long. He's not trying to get out. He's just waiting for me to forget which side of the glass I belong on. Safe travels. And if you're staying in a room that feels like it's stopped checking its watch, keep the bathroom door closed. Some things are better left unreflected.